started, what exactly is PaaS, which stands for Platform as a Service? So for the past many years, we do heard about software as a service. We do also heard about platform as a service, as well as infrastructures as a service. So what we're going to do here is try to explain to you the differences between the software service, platform as a service, and as well as the infra as a service. So to get started about software as a service, typically you just don't need to do anything about software service. So the provider will give you the hosted applications, the tools, the database, the OS such as the Windows or Linux, the servers, the infrastructure, the security, and everything. That's what software as a service is. You just basically pay the money, and you will get the service as to go. While we take a look at platform as a service, it's actually you have to build your own applications. That's why, as you can see in the diagram, you actually the hosted application to built by you, and after that, everything is provided by the provider itself, such as the development tools, the operating systems, the servers, the networking, as well as the data center. The interesting part about here is you don't have to know about the IT infrastructures in order to know platform service, because all the configuration is out of the box. You just use it. So that means if you don't have any knowledge on how to configure Windows servers, it's fine if you want to do the platform as a service. Then we're going to talk about the infrastructure as a service. And for infrastructure as a service, we basically talking about you have to configure your own or called the servers. You can pick which operating system you want out of the box, but you have to kind of like do the configuration on the OS yourself, because they only provide the networking and it provide the physical hardware per se. So you have to configure the thing. That's why we call infrastructure service. As for today's discussions, we only focusing on the platform as a service. Okay, so to give you a better understanding what exactly is a platform service, assuming the app they're going to build is a car. So in infrastructure as a service, you have to own your car, which is on the left side. You have to own your car. You have to operate the car. You have to pay for the maintenance. You have to pay for everything, including that you need to have a parking in your house in order to park your car. So for software as a service, basically you want to get a car to get to somewhere, and you don't have to do anything, right? You can just call the cab or call the taxi. That is what is software as a service. Someone will drive for you. You just basically bump into the car and just sit inside, and once you reach the destination, voila, you are there. As for platform as a service, it's slightly different. Basically, the car is not owned by you, but you have to drive yourself, and you have to pump the petrol, but you don't have to go for the car maintenance because the car is not owned by you. And that is what this platform as a service means. So I hope this diagram gives you a very clear understanding what exactly is a platform as a service. So why we want to opt for car rental model, or we want to opt for platform as a service model, is because once you're having this one, it basically cut you a lot of time. First, you don't have to worry too much about the infrastructures. You don't have to know about that. And if you look at the right side, because you are the drivers, you can drive your car to anywhere you want. You don't have to rely on the taxi drivers to drive you. That's where we say it's in between the both, and it gives you the innovative cutting edge. So let's take a look at this diagram to give you a very, very clear understanding what is actually need to handle by you, and what is exactly be handled by Microsoft, and what going to be handled by you as well. So on the blue color is what you need to do. If you on the on-prem, as you can see, you need to cover the application, the data, the runtime, middleware, OS, virtualizations, servers, storage, and networking. While on the infrastructure as a service, you have to own your own applications, your data. You have to control your OS. You choose which OS you want. The virtualization, the server, everything handled by the Microsoft. As for the platform as a service, you basically only own two items, which is you can control over the application, you can control over the data. The other stuff are all managed by Microsoft. So if you take a look on the right side, software as a service, you're going to realize that everything are handled by Microsoft is not by you. A good example of software as a service it will be a Microsoft Office 365, or now they actually rebrand it to the Microsoft 365 suite, which is everything are controlled by Microsoft. You basically only use it and run it, right? So in terms of this, you're able to realize that depends on how much work you want to do. If you guys are software developers, you can't it's recommended if you can go for the platform as a service, and then you're offering what you actually built and give it to the customers as the software as a service. So you only handle the top two boxes. So I just want to share with you a little bit about the architecture diagram. And as the architecture diagram, these are the generic architecture we have in everywhere in the world. You're going to have API servers, you're going to front end have a mobile. At the back there, you're going to have a database, which is what you can see from here. And then on the top, you have proxy, you have the third-party API, you have storage. So this one typically is a logical diagram. It can be seated on on-prem, or it can be seated on the cloud infrastructures, be it in infrastructure service, or it can be the or called the platform as a service. So without further ado, I'm going to do a very short demo about how I can deploy my web app and my SQL server to the cloud without going through a complicated things on the servers. So let me give you some example of how does it works. All right. So what you can do, you can start with open a new projects, and you can choose the web applications. So in this case, I'm just going to use an empty one, right? You can use a VB, Visual Basic, or you can use a C#. It doesn't matter because these kind of same templates. So once you have something here, what you need to do is just save the projects, and then what you can do just to do a right click to do a publish. And as you can see from here, I'm running from the Visual Studio 2018. Sorry, I'm running on these versions. 2017, it might have a slight difference on the version you have. If running on the 2015, it might have a different layout. But on this case, I'm running on the 2017. As you can see from here, I'm going to publish my web applications to the Microsoft Azure App Services. What you can do, just can create a new one. I just click create, and straight away I can give a name. But if I don't want, I can just straightforward and use the existing one I want. So in this case, I will just do, I can just go to anywhere I want. I just press OK. But I want to choose this one to the, let's choose this one, Southeast Asia, right? I'll explain to you what exactly is there in a short while. So I choose Southeast Asia, Southeast Asia. As you can see here, F is actually the commercial plant, which I explained a bit more. So I press OK. So in about a minute time, the whole applications will be deployed to the servers. Let's wait for it. All right. So once it's ready, I create it. Now I can publish it. Oop. Okay, I need to republish again. It seems to me there's some issues. As you can see from here at the bottom, I'm actually start to compile all the things, and it will deploy to the server as just behind the background. There you go. As you can see from here, so these are the application that I deploy to the server, and immediately without configuring anything, I kind of like go up to the web. Right. Let me close this. The next one I'll share with you how I can deploy the how I can deploy database to the servers. As you can see from here, I'm actually having two different one is actually on the cloud, the other one actually is the local database. I'll share with you how I can deploy this one. So if you expand the database, I can just right click the north ring, which is seated on my desktop, and I can do a task. Deploy database to Microsoft SQL Azure database. Once you click on this, just proceed to it, but you need to log into it. So I can connect to the database. I just give in the credential. Once I connected, I can select the plan I want. In this is a demo. I can just choose a basic, and I press next. In about a few minutes time, less than 5 minutes, the whole database will be deployed to the servers. So let's just press next and see how it goes. Right, I can press finish and I can let it run. So we can just wait for the item to let it run, then and go back to our slide. We'll come back to that later. As for the agenda for today, I'm going through a few things. Number one, we talk about the memory optimizations. Then we talk about the CPU optimizations. When you see the web, the app services is what we showed just now on the web app. Then talk about SQL. And then we talk a little bit about the Azure storage. Number one, we're going to talk about memory optimizations. What it does is, because when you build an application for Azure, it does have a built-in capabilities to understand and manage the threshold of the servers. So if you build a pretty bad code, it will take up a lot of the memory leak. And from there, we need to put in some certain thing in order for the app services to auto-recover. Right, that's what we call the auto healing in point number 4. There's an auto healing features being built into the Windows Azure websites. And if you think about this, unfortunately, the app services is only available for standard instance, because if you share or free, unfortunately, you don't have these features. So I'll share with you how I actually do this for you. And what you have to do is go to configure the triggers, action, and login. You're able to do a logging in the web config. So you have to modify your existing web applications to support these particular functions, right? And you're also able to manage the HTTP response code. Like for example, if the HTTP 500, it does means it's a timeout, and in timeout you can do a specific logging if you want to, right? All these are given to you in the systems. And then, of course, you can set the threshold. The threshold can go by the number of the memories that go up, as well as the response times, right? So I'll give you a short demo how I can modify my apps to support this. Right, this is my web app that I have just now. And what am I going to do? I'm going to copy a set of code snippet and put it down here. Right, as you can see from here, okay, I just want to explain to you. If you see, take a look at the things correctly, what happened here is the response time are more than 10 minutes, right? And what I would do is I will do a recycle, because as you can see here, if the count is more than 1,000, and if this is the threshold, if it take more than this amount of time to respond, I am going to recycle the pool. And this is what it means by auto recovering. So if I publish this code to the server, I will face a problems. If I do a publish, and I do a publish with the same URL just now, it will bump into an issue which I can share to you. as you can see, due to internal server errors, because as I mentioned, this particular website need to be supported by the standard version and above. So what am I going to do? I'm going to the dashboard here, and this is my Azure dashboard. Let me go to my app services. So let me find the one. I think is 72018. Oops, it looked the same. Look at the last 4 digits. It's actually 4457. 4457. So once I reach here, as you can see, I can actually choose a different plan. If you go up to the scale up, once I reach the scale up, because by default is actually a free one, so it doesn't have the functions. I cannot do anything share as well. But I can do is I can go to the standard one, which I need to pay for 44 USD per month estimation. So I need to select this one. Okay, now it's actually updating my app services plan. It will take about less than 30 seconds. Okay, successful. So if I come back to here and I do a refresh, you're able to see my application is able to run, and it will come back with the capabilities of having the auto healing features. Right, as you can see, without changing any codes, I'm able to give you the thing with the auto healing capabilities. So let's go to another auto healing functions, which is based on the slow request. So I'm going to replace the code. And as you can see from here, what it means is when the request taking more than 45 seconds to respond, and if you hit a threshold more than 20, right, I will kind of do an interval of every 2 minutes. I will check that if any 20 of the slow request is more than 45 seconds, then I will do a recycling of the pool as well. So in this case, my app will be constantly able to respond fast enough to the request. Same thing, I can just right click this one and do a publishing. So come back to our SQL Server here. We just did a deployment just now and everything is okay. And I press closed. And as you can see from here, if I go into extend to my servers, these are the previous snapshots and you cannot see any north wind down here. It's supposed to fit inside here, but it's empty now. But if I do a refresh, you're able to see there is a north wind database been deployed. So without going through a very complicated process, I'm able to deploy from my local PC, the database, and deploy to the cloud in Azure accordingly using the SQL Server Management Studio, or in short, SSMS. Right, let's continue. Let's continue on the thing. So you see how I'm able to do the auto healing to be part to make your system a lot more stable in terms of for the web application perspective. The next one, we talk about app services CPU optimizations, because if you can see just now, I'm actually riding on the free version, and I go up into the standard, right? And in that case, we have a couple of things I want to share with you. First of all, when you do CPU optimizations or infrastructure optimizations, we know for a few things. You have to identify your architectures. And you have to know how much performance or the load is required in terms of the people who are going to access the website. It's very, very important, because that I will mention that about the scale up and scale out strategy. And if you're able to define, for example, 1 week or in an hour time, you're going to have 2,000 concurrent users, or you talk about like 10,000 concurrent users, depending on what kind of website you're going to build, right? And let's mention about scale up and scale out. So just now from a free, I go up to scale up. That means I go up is actually based on increasing of CPU, increasing of the memory, disk space, and couple of other things, right? Of course, when you increase the hardware capabilities, you're going to pay for the charges, right? This is what called scale up. So when there is a point where scale up cannot exist anymore, like for example, if I ask you a questions, there are how many CPU you can go for, right? From one CPU, you can go for 4, you can scale up to 8, but there is a time your CPU have certain extent, your network card got certain extent, your memory got certain extent. The only way for you to do it is what we implement scale out architectures. When you do scale out, it means that, for example, I now have a server with 8 cores, with 12 gig of RAM. I will multiple by that. That means that I will have a parallel servers in my case. And from that perspective, I have like 8 core of the server times 4, if I want to scale for 4, right? And then again, I can scale out into like more and more of the network adapters, which is able to cater for more traffic coming in. Because there is a limit in terms of the hardware network adapter. One means one, right? I mean, there is a limit for each of these network adapter able to cater for. In terms of Azure perspective, it does allow you to scale up to 20 instances if you want to. That means if high standard, I think standard have a limitation, but if I go for premium, I can scale all the way up to 20 instances with the thing I want, right? So you can adjust accordingly. One of the best example for you to how people using these features is like the AirAsia airline websites, right? Think about it. They can actually, when they do a promotions like free flight tickets or very affordable flight tickets, they can actually adjust it only for the 3 to 4 days. They can actually have a high traffic and they scale up like 20 instances with a lot of things. When it actually come to a time where they don't have that much of the traffic, they can scale it down in order to save costs, right? In terms of the scale out, there are 2 ways. You can either do manual or you can do automatically. If you do automatically, you need to set a threshold. So let me explain to you in the Azure portal how actually I can do a scale up and scale out accordingly. Right. As you can see from here, just now what I did is I do a scale up, and I'll show you the scale out in a short while. But let me go back to scale up and explain to you. As you can see from here, I'm only looking at the more high-end stuff. As you can see from here, for premium, you can go up to like 20 instances. Right. But if for standard, the one I choose, I can only go for 10 instances, and 10 instances. So there is a limitations on which package you're going to choose. But anyway, you can choose it anytime you want. However, if you do a scale up like this, the services will not be down. But if you do scale out, that means that you come to here, you can choose this one, right? And then you will have a scale out. So all I have to do, I can just drag this one, and I will able to know, or I can enable the auto scaling, right? That you will know that when it reaches the threshold like 80%, you will enable the threshold. So I can just drag this one to 10. Or I can do the auto scaling. So I can scale based on the metric or instance, or you can set the what we call the scaling to be based on what kind of condition you want. As you can see at the bottom, there's a scale conditions. So I can add the rule if I want to. So I can set the criteria, whether on the average time, whether you want the CPU threshold, you want to be at 70%, in the duration of 10 minutes, 70%, then I will do actually a scale up, scale out accordingly. So this is how we can actually improve the performance and make your system a lot more stable. But all of this is actually hidden away from the user and also administrator. You don't have to configure anything. from that perspective. So we talk for the past 10 to 15 minutes. We talk about a lot of things about the web apps. Now we jump the gear and we go to SQL Server optimizations. So the SQL Server you have installed on your PC, you install on the servers, are a little bit different from what you have in the SQL Azure. Because the SQL Azure, they do have something called SQL Database Advisor features that assist you to do a performance monitoring. Right, we can do a bit of the information and let you to see through. So when you learn how to write SQL query or SQL query, whatever you write or whatever you learn is not necessarily optimized for performance. That's why on the point number 2, I mentioned there is something called Query Performance Insight that helps you to execute a lot more better. We'll take a look at this. Another one that we strongly recommend you to do, even for cloud or everything, do not ever store multimedia content such as videos, such as the image, such as the like a MIDI file, a WAV file, or even the MP3 file into the database. This is strongly not recommended, right? Okay, and then of course, another tips and tricks that we recommend you to do is to reduce database web services round trip. This is very, very interesting. It's because when you build an applications, if you're having a round trip between your API or your web applications and the database, when you do this kind of round trip, you have an issues. It will slow down the performance. So if you can, you send in one transaction, hope it can finish everything within one call and come back to you with the result. You don't have to like do a multiple times because it's very, very costly to have a database and web services round trip. Another one is what we call database triggers. Database triggers are particularly to help you to do something quickly and by default, right? This will able to help you a lot in terms of doing to write so much of the stored procedures. And at the same time, it does help you to put in the default value as well. So let's take a look at the SQL Server on the Azure side about the optimizations. Right, let me go to my Azure, let me go to my SQL database. Right, let me pick one of that and we can take a look. Let's go to this one. I just shared with you some of the sample thing that we have here. So when you come to this screen, it does tell you that on the traffic or this or that. Currently, there's no traffic, but if I can share with you, I can give you another one which is have a traffic inside there. So I just want to share with you something. This one also don't have data. This one, this data, I don't have it as for now, so I need to change it. Let me click on others one. If you have, you can see there's a way you call the DTU. When you talk about DTU, this is actually a new unit of measurements that how you manage the DTU performance for the applications, right? Particularly your SQL side. And again, let's come down here. Let's go down to, if you scroll down here. Let me go to this one first. Right. Okay. So also for the same thing, for SQL, there's actually a different price tag to it. You can either use a basic one, and you can use for the standard, or you can use for the premium. So it does tell you how many DTU it does have there, and you can adjust accordingly, right? And okay, come back to here. If you scroll down there, there's something called performance overview, as well as performance recommendations. So if you click on it, the SQL Server will give you some of the information regarding the performance of your SQL servers. So let's take a look at here. When you look at the performance, so this one, because I don't have any data for the past I don't know how many months, so I don't have a lot of information, but it does able to share with you in terms of is like overload or some of these things. But if you click on it, it tells you that there's no active recommendation is recommended for now. That means that you are fine. But if you're not very good, you can also take a look at the performance recommendations. That it does give you some sort of thing that you can read under here. And interesting, if you go to query performance optimizations, right? It does give you, like, for example, some of these query that they highlight, that it recommends you to actually do some performance. So if you click on it, like for example, this is the query ID. If I click on this one, right, it might take longer than expected to actually run it. If you click on this one, it will tell you, because I'm running something like this, it's actually causing a lot of usage. And there is a breakdown about the execution times. The durations is about 2 milliseconds. Because for database, we expect something a lot more faster, right? So there are some of these things that give to you with a very, very interesting information about here. But because this one has been set to last 24 hours, I don't really have a lot of things for you, right? Okay, but because if I can do a past month. I hope there's some data here. If you don't have, you can see a lot of information, or that there's not much information here as well. But you can see from here, this particular wizards does give you a lot of information, right? That it can help you to improve the thing. And also, if you want, you can just click on the auto tuning. And when you just enable this one, it does tell you that couple of things is more like a feedback that you can use for actually the intelligent part of that. That you can create from here. You can also create index to actually really enhance the performance of the search. But index can be quite costly, so you can drop it as well if you want to. So this does give you a lot of information that you can actually, for you to improve the SQL database. All right. Let's come back to here. So we talk about the web app, we talk about database, and lastly, we're going to talk about storage. So because if you use platform as a service, we don't have a file system for you to store your files wherever that you upload, right? So we have something called Azure Storage, or in short, we call Blob, B-L-O-B. For you guys who are familiar with Amazon, this is actually similar to Amazon S3, which is stand for simple storage, right? So you have to understand, in terms of costing wise, Azure Storage are based on how many transaction or accessing cost of your blob. If you build one file, it always accessed by the blob, so you actually charge you. But anyway, this is actually very cheap compared with you having a virtual disk in the VM, right? And then there's a lot of tools to assist you to do some of these things. But there's one thing I really want to share with you, which is in the Azure blob, it does divide into two types, hot and cold. Hot is actually introduced about in the recent years that talk about the frequent access. Basically, it actually means that, sorry, I think there's a typo there. It's supposed to be low cost on the access. Right. If it's a cold one, that means that you actually less access, but it's actually more expensive when you actually when you try to access it, it can be more expensive. So they're hot and cold in this case, right? But you have to pay for more when you start the cold and the hot one. I'll explain to you a bit how does it works. So in terms of strategy, it's very straightforward, right? Either you go by multiple files or you go by single files. So for example, there's a lot of people using this to do a database backup. But in case you're having a virtual machine, if you come with the SQL database, the backup daily actually went to the blob straight away, right? So if you have a multiple files, you actually have the flexibility to adjust anything where you want. But it's easier to manipulate because let's say you got 1,000 files, you can search the file accordingly if you want to, right? But however, if you want to do the if you want to do a single files, you have to zip it up first into one file. But when you download, you only download one file, and it's very fast. Because if you download 1,000 files, it's slower compared with one files, even though the file size is exactly the same in total. So when you do single files, it's less flexibility. So if you plan the files that you're not using it that frequent, that you don't do that much of thing, then we recommend you to have a single files, right? Like for example, database backup, how frequent you open the files, right? However, if you do transactions and you need to access like the, for example, the e-receipt, let's say you make a payment, you generate the e-receipt behind the scene, it's recommended to you to have a multiple files and you can set it to the hot, right? So this is two different strategy. Depends on how you want to do it. Okay. So I'll share with you the Azure storage optimizations. So first of all, I'll give you a pricing. Once you come to the pricings, right, there are a couple of things you have to understand, but just in general, I'll just highlight to you some of the pricing. First 50 terabytes, I mean, you see carefully, it's not gigabyte, it's terabyte. You actually pay for 0.02 per gigabyte. Or the cold one, you actually pay a lot more cheaper, which is slightly lower than the hot one, right? So this is the price that it will take effect in terms of, it's actually coming into the 2018 in March, right? And what you can see from here, it does give you the pricing for every single IO that it does happen, right? So this is some of the additional costs that you have to understand. But again, it's just very, very affordable. It go by cents and it not go by dollars. And from here, you can go for the what we'll call the LRS. It means the location redundancy. ZAC is a new one, while the GRS is actually stand for the geographical redundancy, right? And you can pick wherever they want to do, right? Because some of this thing like when we talk about the LRS, it actually means that if some of the file been corrupted within the same data center, it's able to recover for you. If you go for JO, which is a little bit more expensive, that means your data center, if the file is spoiled in Southeast Asia, they actually send a copy, in fact, 3 copies to a different data center worldwide in Azure. For example, if you have a copy in Southeast Asia, it does send another copy to the one in maybe in the Hong Kong or maybe the one in Japan. And from there, if anything wrong with the local versions on the data center in the Singapore or the Southeast Asia, it does have a copy in the what we'll call the Hong Kong or the Japan as well. So that's what you mean by geographical redundancy, right? I'm not sure about the ZAC as this is the new one. To be specific, I'm going to read more about this and share with you guys in the futures. Right, and in terms of how you upload the files, it's very, very straightforward. Let me share with you a couple of things. This is actually a tool that built by Microsoft. It's called Microsoft Azure Storage Explorer. Right, these tools is the one like something like the Windows Explorer, but it's for the cloud versions. As you can see from here, I can just easily open any file I want. Right. I can just put a file here. I can expand it. Let me share with you some of the files that I have here. So as you can see from here, these are actually a different kind of file or text file that uploaded to the servers. I can just double click. You have to download the file from the server to my local PC before you're able to open it, right? So from here, the couple of things that you can see from I open up into my notepad, right? There's also got another thing that you have to understand is you have to, in order to access this, are very, very tricky because it does go by a lot of the securities because it's act like servers. Let me share with you. The thing, dashboards. And I want to go for my storage. Let's find my storage. See from here, there's a storage account. So there's a lot of storage being created here. Let's go to one of that. In order to upload the file to the storage, you need to have something called the access keys. And the access keys itself is very, very complex. Right. Without some of this key, you will not able to connect to anywhere you want, but it does come with constraint. The good thing about that is if anything goes wrong, you can easily reset the key and everything will be disabled from that perspective. So from there, it will make your life a lot more easier, right? So this is actually about the storage because it's so affordable. It go by cents in terms of the US dollars. So it does give you a lot of advantage how you can actually optimize the thing that you want, right? Right. You come to the end of my presentations. So what we strongly recommend you to do is to really make your life easy, especially in the university. If you guys don't have a lot of skill set on the servers configurations, and you want to go and prepare your application fast enough, you can use the app services. It just like that, it went up to there. As you can see just now from Visual Studio, I deploy and configure the thing in the SQL server. It can be like less than 10 minutes time, right? And then you have to use the optimized SQL query and utilize the Azure SQL Advisor tools to give you a lot of the advantages. Okay, use the blob because it's very, very cheap in terms of the storage. It's definitely a lot more cheaper than anyway. Even you buy a hard disk, it's even cheaper than that, right? So we strongly recommend you to use the storage that recommended by the Azure. So in case of something that I didn't show much thing is about the custom tools, because if your files are getting very complex and you search, I recommend you to build a custom tools. There's a library for you in the Visual Studio. You can write in C# or you can write in Visual Basic in order to build the tools that you want to, right? By that, I conclude my presentations and thank you very much. This is my email address. Feel free to add me into the Facebook or add me, or send me an emails. And now I'll take some questions before I end my presentations.
Hi, Walter.
Yes.
Me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I have a question. Maybe I missed your presentation.
Yep.
What is the advantage of the auto healing feature?
What's the advantage of the auto healing features, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so sometimes if you build applications, because the code that you write, like for example, having like a memory leak, then it will cause your application to be hang or to be not responding, right? But by putting in the auto healing features, what it does is if your website start to respond slow, it will reset the application pool in order to make your website doesn't look slow anymore.
Thank you.
Yep.
Software Azure যে তোমার cloud platformটা কি?
Any other question?
I have a question.
Yes.
When the package is finished after 1 month, how can which package will be suitable for a student to continue?
Oh, for the students, I'm afraid I'm not in the position to advise the students regarding the trial licensing, but you can talk to the Microsoft in the Bangladesh to advise you on that.
Okay, so here at your platform,
Yes.
we're actually thinking about big data or just like machine learning is a huge resource in cloud storage.
Yep.
Now, when we actually just putting the data and managing it, so sometimes it makes some problem with cloud. So how we can handle it if we get some problem in there?
Can you repeat your question again? Because the thing is line is breaking. Or you want to type it in the chat? Can you type it?
Walter.
Yeah.
Actually, her question was if she upload or deploy a project in cloud, if we
Yep.
face any problem, so how can she help from the community or others? Is there any community help available? Or
Oh, definitely. So for information, there are many community out there that can actually help you to answer your questions. It will be such as the Stack Overflow, the MSDN forum, or you can even ask some questions in the GitHub if the questions are relevant. But again, there's so many resources available online. And if you add me into Facebook, if there's some questions, I hope I can answer you within the Facebook as well. Because I do believe you all have a Facebook group on the Microsoft technical community in the Bangladesh. I think I am part of that, but you can also post it there. If I see the questions I are able to answer, I'll try my best to answer you. Okay?
Okay.
Yep. Hope I answer your questions.
Okay. So thank you for your nice presentation. Thank you, Walter.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the invitations. I hope to present again to you guys, maybe in person for next time. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, and have a good day. Bye.
Bye.
Video.